Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Cancer Project podcast. I'm really excited about today's episode. We're going to be talking to Michelle Raney, who has an incredible story of survival and perseverance. She was diagnosed with breast cancer at a very young age and then had to deal with the cancer actually recurring. And so she's really gone through a very arduous process with treatment. And yet today, I can say that she's as optimistic as she's ever been, despite everything that she's gone to. And I'm also very happy to be joined by a co-host today, Heather Jacobson. Heather is the executive producer and creative director on the Cancer Project podcast. So she's behind the scenes, but today she is on camera. So thank you for joining us today, Heather. And Michelle, thank you so much for being here with us. And we're really excited to talk to you a little bit about the journey that you've gone through.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit just about yourself, where you're from, what you do. Help us get to know you, Michelle Raney.
Yeah. So I am originally from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, but I've been living here in Edmond for the past 3.5 years. I'm 27 years old. I met my husband 3 years ago, and it's been a very different start to a marriage. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, very aggressive breast cancer, 2.5 years ago.
How long had you been married at that point, though? Like, you're fresh into this marriage, and
we were married a year. So I was 25 years old. Married a year. We were on top of the world. We had just gotten back from a ski trip and went to a golf tournament, and you're young, you're married, you're healthy, everything's going great. And so cancer was really the last thing on our minds, on our radar at that point in life. And so it was interesting. So, to start, been here in Oklahoma City for 3 years, but for a little over 2 years, I've actually been battling cancer, and it's been the majority of my marriage. It's been the majority of my young adulthood. And so it's been hard, but I'm excited to dig in today and share, mainly where my hope comes from. Mm-hmm. And, I believe miracles happen.
And I think that's what we've seen with you. So there's a couple of critical moments along your journey. Of course, there's that moment that you found out that you had cancer. There's also the moment that we got to know you at the Oklahoma Proton Center. So I think I'm actually going to start there.
Yeah.
I believe I went back and looked at your patient chart, and I think it was April 10th of last year that we got the first phone call from you.
Yeah.
Where were you at in the process at that point? What led to you calling the Proton Center?
Yeah. So I was originally diagnosed in May of 2023, and I went through, almost 2 full years of treatment. And so from May of 23, lots of treatment, into 2024 of more chemotherapy. And so in April, at that point, when I contacted the Proton Center, I was actually still undergoing chemotherapy, but I'm a very proactive woman, and I wanted to get on the ball with talking to doctors and seeing what next steps were. And because it can, there's people from all over the world, and appointments get booked. And so I was like, all right, we're going to be on top of it, get in with the doctor, see what I want to do. And so I had 2 options of radiation approaches. So traditional radiation with, photon or proton. And so my husband and I, we golf at a place near the Proton Center. And so we pass by, we exit by the Proton Center every time we go to the golf club. And so I've always known where it was, for that year we were married. And I always thought it was pretty cool. I was like, oh, we have a high-tech, medical treatment center here in Oklahoma. How cool. And it was the last place I thought I would ever be. And so at that point in April, when I knew I was looking at radiation options, I wanted to contact the Proton Center. And so I called and started that process, and I was kind of interviewing. I was interviewing, my doctor, and
as you should,
interviewing, the radiation doctor at my other hospital. But I was pretty set on coming to the Proton Center.
So April 10th, you've called the Proton Center. You know you need radiation at that point.
Yeah.
You're interviewing doctors. So let's step back to 2023.
Yeah.
Walk us through how you found out that you had cancer.
Yeah. So in May of 2023, I was just at my regular well woman exam that I did. Did it every year. It was for insurance purposes with the company that I was working for. And so it was just routine. And my OBGYN, she was doing her exam and she felt the tiniest lump in my breast. I mean, it's not something I would have ever noticed. And
you're 25
yeah,
years old.
So, you know, I'm not doing my own self-exams.
Right.
I'm
Not
25.
even
I don't even know what I'm
right.
looking for. And I am so thankful that my doctor had the discernment to say, hey, you know, girl, I'm like almost 100% sure. She said 99% sure. This is nothing, but let's go ahead and send you to an ultrasound doctor. I said, okay, cool. And cancer is the last thing on my mind. But I'm so thankful that she had that discernment to send me forward, because she could have so quickly have been like, there's no indications of cancer. She's young. She's healthy. You know, come back in 6 months. Let me know if something's changed. So she didn't do that. And I proceeded with the ultrasound. And through just like grace, I was able to get in just a couple days later. And that ultrasound doctor said, girl, this looks like a fibrous buildup. Like, it looks like it's at its end stages. We can see the calcium around it. I was like, cool. And she said, okay, so you can come back in 6 months and we can do another ultrasound, or we could do a biopsy. I said, well, what would you do? You know, I'm a businesswoman. This isn't my field. And so she suggested a biopsy. I said, okay, cool. So I proceeded with the biopsy. And so from the time that my OBGYN felt a lump to diagnosis was like 6 days. And I got a call from my doctor, and she said it was cancer. And that's the last thing you expect when you're 25. When you're 25, I mean, that shocking news is typically like, I'm pregnant. And it wasn't.
And I remember you saying too in the past, my heart literally dropped.
Yeah.
And because everything just stands still in that moment, right? And who do you lean on? And is it your husband? Are you calling a mom, whoever?
Yeah.
Who are you calling in that?
So it was like your heart just drops. And I know that goes for every person that's been diagnosed with cancer. Like when you get that phone call and you hear those words, your heart just drops.
Right.
And so for me, the first person, I was praying. I was like, all right, Lord, like, I trust you. I know this is about to be really hard and difficult, but I trust you. And then I called my mom. And because I didn't want to call my husband first, because I knew that this news was going to change his life and would be something that he'd remember for the rest of his life. And so it's like, okay, I want him to be in a safe space. And I wasn't ready to break his heart. And being married for a year,
Newly married,
I was not ready to break his heart. So I called my mom and I was crying. I said, Mom, I have cancer. And she said, Michelle, she said, we are not going to claim cancer over you. She said, we're going to, cancer is trying to attack your body, but you do not have it. It's not yours. And so ever since that day, the day I was diagnosed, that was the first and the last time I ever said, I have cancer.
So you've talked to your mom.
Yeah.
Then what happens next?
It is fast and furious. You didn't know you had 7 doctors the next day, but you have 7 doctors the next day. And, it just was a process. Okay, we'll meet with the breast surgeon, then we'll meet with the oncologist. We'll meet, start setting up all these steps and look at treatment plans. We need to see like diagnosis. What has it spread to any other areas of the body? More biopsies, more MRIs. And it was just fast and furious of like getting into the doctor. And for me, unfortunately, it had already spread to my lymph nodes. And so it was stage 3 at that point. And which was just also pretty crazy, I felt healthy as a horse. And so it was just fast and furious of getting into the doctor and beginning to see what treatment options looked like.
And you're a very proactive person. You talked about kind of taking charge of your treatment process.
Yeah.
What's your approach at that point? What are you doing separate from going to visit all of these doctors and listening to what they have to say? How are you tackling the process ahead?
Yeah. So how that looked like for me, faith is number one for me. And so not only looking like, obviously the Lord gives us doctors and medicine, but for me, I was like, okay, I cannot keep my eyes strictly on what the world has, because the world offers death. Like that's just how it is. And so, okay, for me, I really had to have a spiritual like transformation in my own heart, my own mind, my own journey, and how I was going to go forward with this. And really focusing on that mindset and believing in miracles and remembering the miracles that I've seen, and really believing like, okay, I can heal. My body can heal, and healing is possible. And really beginning on like changing that mindset and not, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Oh my gosh, I have to do chemotherapy. And it really is a mental battle, and it's so easy to get into the negative of the doom and darkness around you and the statistics around you. And, really having to focus on that mental battle was number one and that game changer. But I also believe in medicine. I believe that medicine is a whole body approach. And so it's not just a one size fits all. And it's not a one treatment for every single person out there. I believe that medicine, we have to look at what's going on in an individual's own body. And so, because, I'm 25, the statistics and the data and what we have out there for breast cancer is primarily
for you, right?
Yeah, it's for women who are typically 45 years and older. I'm 25. What? That's not supposed to be that way. And so I really wanted to understand when one of my oncologists, she had told me that it was because of genetics. That is why I was facing cancer at 25 years old. And that answer wasn't satisfactory for me, because there's just, realistically, genetics and singular events account for 5 to 10% of actual cancer diagnosis. It said that genetics load the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Right.
And so needing to understand, like, okay, what am I consuming? What are like environmental factors, physical factors? What are foods, stressors?
Things inside your control that you can manage, right?
Exactly. And so taking that approach and adding that into understanding why cancer and adding that into my treatment was very important to me.
So what did that mean practically at that point in time? And I know we've talked with you a little bit about, I think I'm going to use a term that maybe some people are familiar with, integrated or integrative oncology.
Yeah.
How did that manifest itself back in 2023 at that moment right after you got diagnosed?
Yeah, so right after it got diagnosed, I believed in integrative medicine before being diagnosed. But when I got diagnosed, I was like, no way am I touching that. I'm not going to eat beets and say that it cures me. Because you have really extreme people on social media.
Right.
That, it's not healthy to look at and follow that advice, because cancer is hard.
Right.
And it can be deadly, and it's not something to mess around with. And so I was like, no way am I touching that. And my doctor was talking to me about, these different things. And I was like, yeah, I'll never do that. Nope, no. And so it was something I actually was like, no, let's get my port put in. Let's start chemotherapy. Let's start this now. And it actually, through a lot of prayer and open doors, integrative medicine actually came back into my life. And I met with a couple different doctors and had a lot of peace actually about incorporating integrative medicine into my treatment plan. And so that's kind of how it started. Right afterwards was okay, at first I was really closed off to it, and then it just came in flooded with peace. And so I followed that.
So I think, one of the things that we talk about at the Proton Center, Heather, is just the fact that there's so much information out there, and people go to resources or have resources like TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah.
How do you know, what's real, what's fake, it's people are so vulnerable at that time. Yeah. How did you kind of weed through the information and say, okay, well, this is where I need to go or what I need to do. Yeah. I need more of this in my diet versus cutting this out? Where do you even start?
Oh gosh, that's hard, because even now I look at that, on the reels that come on Instagram and TikTok, and some of it just
it's a little kooky.
It's really kooky, and it blows my mind, and it makes me sad for people out there, because people who say, if I got diagnosed with cancer, I would start with a 3-day water fast only.
And people look at that as fact, and they start to do those things. You had the wherewithal to say, okay, well, there's room for both. Yeah. Some people don't, though. So how do you?
Yeah. So I think that it's very important to have accredited doctors and not look to social media. Social media, you need to have a team, an actual verified, certified, integrative oncology team, someone that you can trust, who comes with that backing and credibility. And then, sure, you can float around on social media and see what other people have to say, but to try to figure it out on your own is not something I would recommend. And I know for some people it has worked, which is awesome, and I'm not discounting that. But, I've also seen for some people who did do it their own way, and unfortunately, cancer took a really hard turn for them. Right. And so it's just, cancer is not something to play around with.
Yeah, time is of the essence with a diagnosis, right? You really need to take it seriously and not prolong some treatment.
I think part of the way that I would think about integrative medicine is that you are integrating different approaches. You've talked about the fact that your body is fighting the cancer simultaneous to you getting some of these external treatments. Yeah. It's hard to navigate social media because there actually is a lot of great information out there too. Absolutely. There's actually a lot of great doctors or institutions or cancer centers or even patient testimonials that can be very valuable resources for patients. And I think the other thing that we talk a lot about at the Proton Center, and that you've taken this approach, is you as a patient have to be your own advocate.
Yes.
You care about your body, you care about your mental health, you care about your well-being more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And so maybe take it from that angle. How are you balancing, yes, you need to have this certified team of credible doctors that have experience dealing with this particular cancer, but also I know that I have to be my own advocate, and maybe I'm even going to
credible in certain areas too. A radiation oncologist is very credible in radiation oncology versus a medical oncologist who really knows chemotherapy, all those things. So you kind of have to have a all hands approach with this and have a team of all of those doctors
and not be afraid to speak up and ask questions and make suggestions. So how did you balance that?
Oh, I laugh because I know I have given my doctors a run for their money. Very much so, because it really is different going into cancer hospitals and facilities, because I'm typically always the youngest one in the room. I'm not at a pediatric hospital, obviously, but I'm not
far off from it, though.
I mean, really. And so when I go into these hospital rooms, most of the time these people are, my parents' age, my grandparents' age, they're on oxygen tanks, they're in wheelchairs, they're not well taken care of with their body. And so I'm up there and I remember thinking, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. On my off days of chemotherapy, I was working out and, trying to get the nutrition I could. And so I say all of that because with all of the medications I took, with all of the chemotherapies I did, I asked my doctors about every single question there was to ask about it, whether it be about the PARP inhibitors or anything with it. I wanted to know side effects. I wanted to know what things would look like. And so I could incorporate integrative modalities with it to support my body, because to be able to reduce inflammation in your body, that's huge. To increase oxygen in your body is huge. To decrease an acidic environment in your body is huge, because those are all areas that cancer thrives in. They thrive in high acidic environments, low oxygenated environments. They thrive in stress. They thrive in inflammation. That's when it grows. And so to be able to understand like that, those basics of your body, right? It takes it. I was a businesswoman before, and now I know a lot about my own body, and it's kind of like a car, right? We see a lot of people, probably our dads or our handymen, and they know everything about a car and go get this belt changed at 100,000 miles, do this with your oil. Well, we all drive cars. Some of us, don't know anything about the cars, and we just, believe it wherever we take it. Other people are, can change their own alternators.
Right.
And so it's just being able to, like, you have to take the time to learn about your body, learn about the things that your body does and how we were designed. And from there, you're able to just feel it in your own body. So then when you're undergoing these really harsh treatments, you know how to complement, just traditional medicine. And it gives your body a really good chance at fighting back as well, because then you're encouraging your immune system to grow stronger. You're encouraging your body to like heal from the inside. You're just giving your body a fighting chance with it, right? Because there's the spirit, the body, right? Like it takes both to do it.
It's like what we talk about at the Proton Center with the 360 cancer
approach,
care,
right.
mind, body, soul,
Right.
Yeah.
Diagnosis, treatment, survivorship. You really have to take this holistic approach.
Yeah.
So what were some of and I know we've talked a little bit about this, so I'd love to hear some of the examples of treatments that you found to be helpful or beneficial for things like stress or inflammation or balancing acidity.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. I think it's awesome. And I have a plethora of information. Yeah. So I just picked a couple of topics that I think are really like different modalities that are really interesting, and some that I've done, some that I haven't done. To start, I think that an individual, especially going through cancer treatment, needs to get a baseline of where their body's at. Right. Like we do, the typical CBCs, the CMPs, let's see, certain tumor markers. But we need to look, okay, let's see what that CRP, like an inflammation marker, is saying. Let's see what iron is saying, or alkaline phosphates. And like, just let's see what your body is saying from an entire approach. And
is this a blood test?
Or
is this
a blood test, okay. Right? Hormone panel. Let's see where your hormones are at. Okay, let's see, truly where your stressors are at. Let's try to just get a deeper body approach. And so, it's a hard line. There's a lot of things that you can do. It's kind of two parts to integrative approaches. There's a lot that you can do that is free, that doesn't have a lot of extra, like you don't have to go to a different clinic, a different doctor to do. So there are a lot of things that you can do with that. But with integrative medicine, you really do have to have a doctor. And so one of the things that I did to address, like, let's see where my body is at, is called a 3D body scan.
Okay.
And so what that does is, let me flip to my notes.
And I will say this, Michelle, one of the things that I've always appreciated about you is that you are very detail-oriented. You come with notes. But I think that's
incredible.
It's incredible.
We want this for every patient to be doing exactly what you're doing. And I think some people just don't even know where to start. Yeah. This is so helpful.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's there's no bad questions. So there's no wrong questions.
No.
I love it. Okay, well, so what I started with was something called the 3D bioscan with my integrative oncologist. And so this scans the body at a cellular level. So, right, like when cancer is growing, it's at a cellular level. Like you don't even feel that it's growing. And so, when we're talking about at a cellular level, some people can be so quick to just like breeze by it. But truly, like cancer starts at a cellular level.
Right.
And so in this scan, it evaluates the metabolic and energetic activities within tissue. And so this offers a unique view into your body and its functional state. And so, it is incredible, the things that this scan specifically does. It looks at over, I think, 20,000 different variables within your body, from parasites, inflammation, stressors, depression, your hormones, just, every cancer. Even in January, I did this scan this past January, and it showed angiogenesis, which is growth of blood tumor vessels, like cancer tumor vessels. So we saw that, and we saw the bone.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were just you're able to see some of these things so you know how to tackle some of these approaches. And so being able to start with a scan or blood work of just something that gives you a baseline, like let's understand your whole body, what's going on. It's not just cancer. Like what took your body to this point that cancer started to develop?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you didn't just wake up one day and have a tumor and be like, oh, there's cancer.
Right.
You know, it took years of your body going through whatever it went through to have a cancer diagnosis.
Right.
So
there's some breakdown in the body's natural immune system, whether it's those immune cells are not recognizing the cancer, or there's some chemical thing happening that's preventing your body's immune system from dealing with mutation in cells. So yes, this is this full body checkup. You talked about the car. This is the examination or the inspection to say what are maybe some of the issues that led to this disease that I now have.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And so I love how you put it, and that just reiterated my point of when my first oncologist told me that I was diagnosed because of genetics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, girl, it took a little bit more than just that. Yes, it played a part.
There may have been a predisposition for this to occur.
Yes.
But then maybe there's some other things that have happened.
Absolutely.
That have, again, led to this cancer diagnosis. Right?
Absolutely. So another integrative modality that I incorporated into my treatments was something called ozone therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a medical treatment that uses ozone gas at a highly reactive form of oxygen that's composed of 3 oxygen atoms. So it's really cool. It's really technical. We use UV ray lights. You know, we take your blood out. It goes through this oxygenation process through UV light. Just kind of really cleans up blood, puts oxygen into it, and then we put it back into your body. And so the point of that is just increasing the oxygen in your body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that really is it. It helps clear out inflammation. It helps clears out, if there's parasitic activity going in your body, it just helps give your body, it's like taking a multivitamin, for your body. Just gives a good boost and helping your body to perform optimally. Mm-hmm. So I was doing this during oral chemotherapy pills and just like helping my body in the ways that I could. So it wasn't something that, these modalities in integrative medicine is to be used in conjunction with traditional chemotherapy, right?
It's not either or.
Right. I don't think so.
Right.
I know for some people it has worked for them, mm-hmm. for pursuing just strictly holistic and integrative medicine, but mm-hmm. For me that was not the case.
And that's where you look case by case patient.
Exactly.
Like that's a person by person. That's not
mm-hmm.
Everyone has the same approach.
It'd be different if someone was stage 0 or stage 1 or something very minimal,
right.
and being able to start with an approach like that'd be a different story. But as someone that was stage 3, right. very aggressive, that wasn't the case for me. Mm-hmm. Now there's this other integrative modality that I do want to talk about. It's not one that I did, but I think it is super interesting.
Okay.
And it has a lot of science behind it. And I really cannot wait for it to be more widely adopted mm-hmm. here in the US. And so this is called hyperthermia treatment. And it is a non-invasive and it is scientifically backed therapy that uses heat to target and treat cancer cells. So this cancer treatment involves raising the temperature of a specific area in the body to help destroy cancer cells or make them more sensitive to other forms of treatment, such as radiation and chemotherapy. So this is hyperthermia is something that you use in conjunction with radiation and or chemotherapy. And so the goal of that, so cancer cells are more sensitive to heat than healthy cells. Mm-hmm. It's a proven fact. And when cancer cells are exposed to high temperatures, their ability to function and reproduce is impaired. The characteristics of these cancer cells that make them more susceptible is because they have poor blood supply and tumors. Cancer cells have weaker repair mechanisms, right? They're really just kind of going crazy.
Right.
And they're in an acidic and low oxygenation environment.
Right.
And with the faster cell proliferation, which means, cancer cells have poor response levels to thermal stress. And so that's why hyperthermia is something that is actually being used in conjunction here at a couple places in the States, but also overseas. So
talk to me. So that brings up a good point, because some of the things or treatments that you've talked about, either A, aren't widely accessible, or B, maybe aren't covered by insurance. And so there's this cost component that you're having to factor in.
I'm thinking that too. Like, I'm a newly I know nothing about any of this. How do I even know? You say a doctor, but then can I afford this, or is this something that is even an option for me? I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about accessibility geographically, medically, financially. What have you found going through this process? You talked about hyperthermia maybe only being available in a few places in the United States.
Yeah, so hyperthermia specifically is available in the U.S. at a Boston University, as well as the Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York, Duke University, and Maryland University. So,
okay,
right,
so some top,
some top hospitals,
top cancer centers,
which is very exciting. Yeah. But Germany is the world leader in hyperthermia, and so with that, of being able to have access to integrative modalities, it is expensive. There's no way around it. Insurance doesn't cover it, and being able to, I am very thankful that we were able to pursue having an integrative oncologist. She lives out in California, and I have to travel out there. And, whatever I am not able to do in my time out there with her, I've been able to piece together here in Oklahoma with some other doctors who offer similar services. But again, insurance doesn't cover it.
Right.
And so, I know we have spent a lot of money on cancer.
Right.
And
the amount of appointments too. I know you've said this number to me before, and I'm going to forget it off the top of my head, but how many appointments have you had from like first diagnosed up until today?
Up until today, it's grown upwards of like 350 appointments.
Wow. Incredible.
Wow.
It's
not incredible.
Lot.
That's
it's just an incredible number.
From every appointment and MRIs and blood work and shots. And so it is a full-time job. And to be able to incorporate integrative medicine, that's where it has two parts. There's a lot that you can do that is free. And
like give us an example.
So being outside in the sun, right? Like not always being indoors and in front of that blue light, and really prioritizing reducing that stress level, and meditation and breathing, and using, stainless steel, right? Versus nonstick, like Teflon. There's a documentary on Netflix about Teflon, about how carcinogenic it is.
Yeah. It's wild.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And so being able to just like replace certain things, using glass and wood versus plastic, because you microwave plastic.
Baby steps though every day, right? It's not
the baby
all
steps.
At once. It's what can I can stop drinking out of whatever that's been sitting in my car for a few days that might have some chemicals on
Changing
it.
like the detergents that you use, or your shampoos, just really starting with the little things like filtering your water.
Yeah.
That one's a couple $100.
But different moisturizer. I'm a girl, so I'm thinking through all the things I could probably stop putting on my face and around, or hairspray, all the things. You gotta baby steps.
An average makeup product, I think, has like over 100 ingredients.
And we have not a lot of regulations on those either in the United States, so you really have to read the label.
Yeah, so being able to read the label, and food is a big one. Being able to prioritize eating real food instead of processed. Or I know we all love Chick-fil-A, but Chick-fil-A's chicken sandwich is made with too many ingredients.
Right.
And it really does stink. Eating out has not become enjoyable for me, because I'm like, I don't even want to know what this is made with.
Right, yeah.
But there's a healthy balance, obviously. But being able
you can always have a cheat day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And so being able to just start with those small things of, choosing not to drink a pop or
alcohol.
Or you know, I remember being in the chemotherapy room, and this man that I was next to, he goes, yeah, this is my third time in 10 years to be dealing with cancer.
Wow.
He pulls out a giant Mountain Dew bottle and a king-size Rice Krispie. I'm not saying that's what did it for him,
right,
but it's definitely not helping. Yeah. And those ingredients in there are not
breaking
supporting
those habits, though.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not supporting your body and being able to help. And so just going on walks and just really, really trying to, you know, find a more centered place of peace and really opening your mind to believe in miracles and believe that healing is possible. You know, your mind is the foundation of that battle. And so that's free. No one has to tell you to charge. Right. You know, this is how much it costs to change your mind. That's not where it starts.
And speaking of miracles, I remember one of the first times I met you, you brought a book that had all these photos in it of you with your grandma. Am I saying that right? Okay. Yeah. And talk a little bit about that, because I feel like that contributed to your mindset going into treatment. You said, I've seen miracles. What do you mean by that?
So 14 years ago, 15 years ago now, my grandmother and grandfather both went through cancer treatment. And, you know, over the years, I was like, oh yeah, this is really cool. My grandparents are here, they're alive. But it really didn't hit home until I was in that same position as them. And so my grandmother was diagnosed with similar breast cancer, and through a very long series of events, ended up in a coma and brain dead. And she was there in the hospital for about 6 weeks. She was on all the life support machines. 5 different doctors had told my family, you know, she's brain dead. She's not waking up. Like, if she wakes up, it's a miracle. And if she does, she will be severely handicapped. And so that's, you know, and that was all because of cancer.
Wow.
And so my family had decided on a Friday, that following Monday, they would take her off of life support. And so that following Saturday, my grandfather walks into the room, and a doctor that we hadn't been working with comes into the room, and he picks up my grandmother's chart, and he says she's going to wake up, and sets it down and walks out of the room. And my grandfather walks to the charge station after him, and the doctor said, sir, I told you she's going to wake up. You need to go back into the room. And my grandmother slowly started to wake up. Like, she started wiggling her toes and said, ouch, because my aunt was pinching the crap out of her. And it took months of rehab, but my grandmother's here 15 years later.
Amazing.
And is one of my best friends. And
but it was that, like, second opinion, honestly, right? That someone else came in and said, she's going to wake up.
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that she woke up, I mean, it was a miracle.
Yeah.
And so just a couple months later, like 4 months later, my grandfather, her husband, was diagnosed with metastatic non-small cell lung. And it had
aggressive, right?
Very aggressive.
Yeah.
The doctors told him, sir, you have about 90 days left to live. You need to get your affairs in order. And he's, you know, he went through chemotherapy, and he's here. That was what he did. He didn't do surgery. And he's alive, and he's here 15 years later. And so for me, my grandparents were such a foundation, such a rock for me throughout my own treatment. And I said, okay, I've seen this in my grandparents' lives. I've seen them. I've seen my grandmother wake up, and I've seen my grandfather live 14 years past an expiration date. And I am 25, 26, 27. I have a long life to live. I have babies to make. I have a long marriage to have, and cancer will not kill me. And that was the mindset I had. And I told all of my doctors, I said, I don't want to hear anything bad. I said, you know, I will live. Cancer will not kill me. And, you know, it really was just putting a blinder on to everything else around me. So your mindset is top priority in everything, right? Yes, understanding your body, what your body's saying is very important, but being able to come in with that mindset,
connects, right? Mind, body, connects.
It is one of the biggest parts. And then because you're able to trust your doctors too with their expertise and trust the medicine. And when you have peace about going into a treatment, you just really you don't really have another option, but you just get to relinquish and trust.
Right.
And then you get to let your mind fight that battle.
So talk to us a little bit about deciding to do proton therapy versus traditional radiation.
Yeah.
What were the decision points in that process?
Oh man, this one makes me laugh because I had interviewed one of the doctors at Proton, and I had interviewed one of the doctors with traditional radiation at my facility. And I knew, I was very dead set on coming to the Proton Center because I looked into the research and understood the benefits of what it could provide for me. So the breast
Before
cancer
you were even diagnosed, right? You said you're golfing. We have this across. What is that? Oh, I got to look into that. But you kind of, in the back of your head, knew a little bit about the Proton Center.
We actually have some friends who, 15 years ago, their son had a brain tumor and drove from Dallas to the Oklahoma Proton Center to receive treatment. Wow. And so, it's something that, I was kind of familiar with, but just understanding its superiority, specifically for me fighting a left side breast cancer, which was near my heart. And so when I was diagnosed and making the decisions, looking at the data that was there, okay, so it has less of an impact on your organs of your lungs and your heart. Well, the heart made sense because I just did a chemotherapy that is very difficult on your heart. So let's do anything that we can to mitigate heart damage. And so I was very set on Proton, unless there was something that the radiation doctor, with Photon could tell me anything different. I was pretty set, and having insurance approved Proton was also very big. So I remember going to the radiation doctor at the traditional hospital, and I gave him a run for his money too. And it was funny, I was bald as bald could be, and I sat there and I was like, okay, so tell me why this kind of radiation. What can you do? How is this going to protect my heart? How are we going to mitigate damage to my lungs? How are we going to spare other healthy tissue? And, he gave me some diagrams and he spoke to me about a couple of things, but he really could not give me anything superior to the Proton Center. And he had, even at the very end of it, he said, are you interested in, maybe pursuing some clinical trial studies? There's a place up in Ohio, and I know they also have a Proton Center. And I thought to myself, I was like,
you're right there.
I was like, you're silly. Why would I travel that far?
Right.
And
Proton's a proton, right? No matter where you get it.
Yeah, no matter where you get it. And so I was pretty set on the Proton Center to begin with. When I knew I was going to pursue radiation, I was like, why wouldn't I? It's 15 minutes away from the house. That's a blessing.
Well, and as you talked about, there is a physical difference with a proton and a photon, which manifests as a difference in exposure to healthy tissue, exposure to radiation. Protons can be stopped. So when we deliver those protons into the body and we diagram and pick out where we want those protons to go, and in your case, it was the left side of your chest, we can send those protons in at just the right energy such that they stop inside the treatment area and they don't continue traveling. And when you have your heart beyond the treatment field on your left side, there's a real risk of exposure to radiation if you can't stop that radiation. With photons, you can come in at a variety of different angles and do your best to try to avoid the heart. But at the end of the day, you can't stop photon radiation inside the tumor. It's going to keep traveling. And you are inevitably going to hit more healthy tissue with photons than with protons.
Exactly.
Almost every single time. And so that's something I think that you've said that you knew and you figured out. You're going to have less radiation exposure to the heart that's already potentially
undergone a lot of stress.
Of stress because of the chemotherapy. But I think I like what you said, walking in to the radiation doctor and asking very radiation specific questions. How much radiation exposure am I going to get to my heart? How much radiation exposure am I going to get to my lungs? How are you going to control where this radiation is going? How do you know it's going to go where you think it's going?
Yeah.
Those are questions that every patient should ask.
Yeah.
And I don't think every patient does ask those questions, but those are questions that every patient should ask. And then when you walk in to talk to the medical oncologist, what are the side effects that I might have because of this chemotherapy drug? Are there other alternatives that maybe we aren't exploring that we should talk about?
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe there's some red flags too if you're going to a doctor who is so anti whatever it is. You maybe that's a problem. Do they know about this? And you really need to work through those questions too. Am I at the place I need to be if this person is so opposed to proton therapy?
Right.
Yeah. Just being able to have your information is so important, and so many people don't do it. Many people don't do it, but it's so important to know your information.
So you mentioned a few minutes ago you want to have babies.
Yes.
It is a reality for patients and for women going through a treatment, like a treatment for cancer, especially when you're doing chemotherapy and surgery and radiation. Those are things you really have to think about.
Yes.
How did you approach that process of thinking about, I still want to have a family, but there's things that are going to be happening to my body that maybe are going to make that really challenging?
Yeah.
What did you do?
Yeah, so it goes back to my OBGYN. She and I have had a relationship prior to cancer, about a year. And having a good relationship with your, primary doctors is really important. I know a lot of people don't have to see a doctor and, they're healthy as a horse, but being able to have an established relationship really was in my benefit, because my OBGYN, she immediately reached out to the director of the fertility center here in Oklahoma City, which we have one. And it's a 6-month waiting list. Unless you're going through cancer, then, you kind of have a little bit more priority.
Yeah.
And she immediately started to talk to me about fertility and what that looked like, and encouraged me to freeze my eggs. And so I started that, 4 weeks after being diagnosed, I started that process of freezing, my eggs, preparing the eggs, retrieving the eggs and freezing them. And so I have eggs just in case if I need them. I believe that maybe I won't need them, because maybe I won't. But, going through chemotherapy is very real, destroying your ovaries as a woman. And so that is also a possibility. But I'm thankful that I had the mentorship and advocacy from my OBGYN to get eggs freezed.
And as you're thinking about cancer, that's a lot of times that's maybe not something that you're thinking about up front.
Yeah.
Maybe down the road, it's something that will cross people's mind, but you were very proactive in that approach.
Absolutely. And I think it's also, it's very different, because a lot of women who get diagnosed with cancer are, deciding they're not going to have any more babies, or they're already menopausal.
Right. It's not typical to be 25, right?
And to be thinking, I was like, at that time, I was like, I'm not ready for a baby. And then I got the cancer diagnosis, and I was like, my babies.
Yeah. And you have to think about that.
You do.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think has bonded the two of you, Heather and Michelle, is a love of art.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Heather is a fantastic artist and does some amazing abstract paintings. And some of those paintings are hanging up at the Proton Center and at our breast center. But one of those paintings is actually hanging at your house.
Yes.
And I think this is a really neat story about how that painting came to hang at your house, because there is a backstory to that painting even getting made. So Heather and Michelle, why don't you guys talk a little bit about how that painting ended up in your house and what it's meant to you?
Yeah.
Well, so in my, I didn't know you a lot while you were going through treatment, but I feel like we were at a time where we were trying to find patients willing to share their story. And Tessa, who's our front desk concierge, she said, Michelle is wonderful. She sits in the lobby. She talks to all the patients. You should meet her. I met you. I fell in love with you. And so that was really my exposure to you at that time.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting ready to donate a piece for the Proton Pals Foundation. And I always try to write on all the canvases something. I don't ever know what it means at the time, but I write it down, and then it makes sense later.
Yeah.
And I might mess this up. You can help me with this, because I was looking back trying to remember what the words were. It was, I wrote on the canvas, even in the darkest skies, the brightest light shines, or the brightest star shines, something like that. And then I'm painting over it, drop it off at Proton Pals. it spoke to you. I think you were there that night at our annual dinner and auction, and you ended up going home with this painting. And I'm like, this makes so much sense now that I know Michelle. You are a light, truly, and you were such a light to any patient you came across in the lobby, the staff. Like, I don't know that you know necessarily how much you did for us. Like, I know we helped you, but you helped us so much more. And I'm just blessed to know you, and I hope you know that you are such a light in this world to, you say the older women who, how are your grandkids, or how's your family, how's your husband, but you can also talk to a 75-year-old prostate cancer patient and meet them at that level. So
well, painting,
I hope you know that.
Thank you, Heather. That painting, when I saw it, I told my husband, I was like, oh my goodness, look at this. Because for me, I have journaled the past 3 years, and there was a specific moment when I was journaling right around that time, and I had this visual picture, and just for me at the time, everything was dark. And, I am so thankful I have had a positive mindset and have moved forward, but it does not negate the dark and depressing and scary times and like just the soul-wrenching times. And that painting just put to picture what I was feeling. Like it was just dark, but it was beautiful. And there was a light that was breaking through this dark sky. And for me, it just encapsulated where I was at. And because everything around you, feels like death when it's scary.
Right.
And that painting, it just spoke volumes, and it's hanging up in my office. I love it. And it just gives a renewed sense of hope that no matter how deep, dark, and scary it gets, hope will just outshine that darkness. I mean, it starts as a small sliver, but hope radiates so thickly, so broadly, and miracles happen, healing happens. And so to be able to just keep your mind on that light, on that hope.
And these like glimmers of it, even it doesn't have to be this huge overhead light that is bright and shining in your face all the time. It could just be like a glimmer of hope, and your mindset speaks to that.
Thank you. Yeah.
How did you find, and that is such a beautiful story. And I think art is an important part of the healing process, and maybe not, and maybe even a bigger word is just beauty. Yeah. It's where are you finding beauty going through the process, whether that's nature, you talked about going on walks, is it music, is it art, is it relationships with other people, is it relationships with your mom? Where are you finding those day-to-day moments of beauty today?
Yeah, today, so for me, is specifically with just like sitting with those hard feelings now. Because during the middle of the battle, right, it got even worse, right? In December, I was told that cancer had spread to both sides of my lungs, into my bones, into inoperable lymph nodes. And at that time, I was like, nope, we don't have time to think about how scary this is, because I'm focusing on healing.
Right.
That's where my eyes are at. I don't want to think about anything else. And because I had an objective in my mind, I'm going to heal. I'm going to heal. And so for me now, I am definitely sitting in a place of sitting with those hard feelings and those scary times, and just processing, allowing myself to be sad. And that was really hard. And that was really scary. And that was really painful. And looking back now, even just like seeing the pictures of everything I went through, of being a weird little bald stage, that was wild. And seeing the surgeries, seeing the bone biopsies, and just really feeling, that diagnosis in December was worse than the initial diagnosis that I first received. And just like sitting with those times of like being in the MRI machines and crying, because I was just so sad and your heart is breaking. But then for me, I put it on pause because healing's my objective. We'll come back. And so for me, that's where I'm at with it.
That's such a setback.
Yeah.
When you think that you're done with the process, you're done with treatment, I've gotten through everything, I've taken the right approach, and then you get told that the cancer has come back.
Yeah.
I think you've touched on this a little bit, but what was going through your head in December as you're told, we've done everything that we possibly can, and there's still cancer. It's spread. We're going to, you're almost restarting at that point. Right? I mean, what were you thinking?
Yeah. So I just finished, all these treatments for, all of 23, all of 24, more chemo, surgery, proton radiation. Finished that in September. And that was
300 plus appointments of.
Right.
And proton radiation was just supposed to be like precautionary.
Right.
Like, just in case we're going to zap out any cancer cells. And just, a short 3 months later to be told cancer spread. Oh, that was just heartbreaking. I mean, I was in public and I broke down and I cried because it was just like you felt trapped. It was just like, oh my gosh, like I thought I was done and now I'm waking up and I'm still in this nightmare. And how did cancer spread? I've done what feels like everything. And this is really scary. What else is there? Like clinical trials that aren't promising and you're just, trying to see what data can, show. And it was just, my heart broke and I had to be very protective at that time about who I spoke to around me, because now to be told stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, it's in your bones, it's in your lungs. And at the time we didn't know it was in my lungs, which I'm thankful for, but very wild. And really having to protect who I was talking to, because at that point, I know what data says about that.
Right.
And I know what people say about that. And even my husband had come inside one night and he was crying. And it was last December, 2023, we had bad news. 2024 was bad news. And he was telling me, Michelle, I'm prepared for this to be my last Christmas with you. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I raised my voice and I said, it will not be. I said, cancer is not going to kill me. But I had to even protect myself from the words that my husband was speaking, because nope, I am not going to die. And this will not be my last Christmas. And my objective was healing. And it was diving into that faith, because I'm so thankful for the Proton Center, because my doctor was there. I mean, he knew I had a PET scan in December. He and his nurse were ready for it. As soon as they saw that news, he called me. And he immediately said, okay, here's my number. If you have any questions, call me, and started a treatment plan to treat the cancer on my femur bone immediately. And I am just so grateful for that, because a week and a half later, I started proton radiation now on my femur. And it was just a wild wind of getting started back with it. And now I only did 5 treatments. And I was like, we're only doing 5. This is a walk in the park.
How many did you do?
I did like 32.
Okay.
And so
the first time to the primary tumor in your breast, right?
In my breast, and the neck, the clavicle. We radiated a quarter of my body.
It's a big area, yeah.
And so we finished that, and I was taking oral chemotherapy. And then on top of that, with my integrative practices, whether that be through the different supplements and repurposed drugs, and going out to my oncologist in California and doing these other tests and scans and, IVs, just things to help support my body. And at that time, my mind was the biggest catalyst of I'm going to heal. And one of my oncologists had told me, Michelle, there is not enough chemo, not enough radiation, treatment, or surgery that will ever get rid of cancer. And I remember I was crying, and I told her, I said, I believe now that I'm living a cancer-free life, and I will be cancer-free for the rest of my life. Cancer will not kill me. And that's crazy, right? My bone hurts. I'm in pain. We're looking at these scans that show cancer everywhere else.
Right.
And telling her, no, I am going to live.
Wow.
And, I had a follow-up PET scan less than 90 days later, and that PET scan was a miracle, and it showed no cancer. And
incredible.
I remember my doctors called me, and I was like, this is what? I was like, no, there has to be something around the corner. And, I had a PET scan this last May, no sign of cancer.
That's amazing.
And
a miracle, right?
It's a miracle. Yeah.
Right.
It's a miracle. And I'm thankful for my doctors. I'm thankful for medicine. I'm thankful for the integrative medicines. But your mind is so powerful. And it is like that rudder to your ship. Though it's small, it dictates what direction you're going to go.
That's an incredible story. And it's
I'm like speechless over it. Like,
yeah.
Where do you even go from?
I mean, that's why we wanted to talk to you today, because I think there's, unfortunately, so many patients that are dealing with not only that first diagnosis, but then the recurrence.
Yeah.
And have lost hope.
Yeah.
You never gave up hope.
And it's devastating. And there is a reality with cancer. We know that, right?
Yeah.
There's just going to be situations where the cancer is so aggressive and it's so widespread that there's just nothing that you can do, no matter all of the integrative medicine and the traditional treatments and the clinical trials. We know that. And that's just the devastating, horrific reality of this disease, of cancer. But I also think it's so important for people to know those stories of hope and optimism, and also know the mental mindset and mental fortitude that maybe it can take or needs to take to get through a recurrence or the cancer spreading.
Yeah.
How are you doing today? I mean, you talked about you had the scan in May. What is treatment, or what is the process look like for Michelle Raney today?
Today, it looks like I'm very confident, and all my doctors, I still give them a run for their money. And I still take oral chemotherapy pills, and I take, some hormone blockers and ovary suppressants because I'm 27, and it's just what I have to do. And with that, I still take a lot of supplements. I still prioritize my health and rest and food and juices. And so right now is still very healing. Like, even though I've received clean PET scans, I refuse to just jump back straight into the grind, this hustle culture. That's not how we were meant to live.
Right.
And especially, I went through a very long battle. The last thing I'm doing is jumping into something and stressing myself out all over again. And just really taking time to heal and sit with those emotions and just take it step by step. Some of my oncologists tell me they want me on chemotherapy medicine for, indefinitely. And I know that's not the case, because realistically, you can't be on chemotherapy medicine your whole life because it's still toxic. And so for me, I'm just taking it day by day. And for me, I really believe in just following the peace and understanding, still keeping myself informed of other medicines out there, of other practices, but just following peace of what needs to happen. And so I'll know when it's time to switch medicines or stop medicines, and just really following peace with it. And it's exciting. I tell all my doctors, I say, look at this. I do a monthly blood test, a specific blood test, and it comes back negative every month, which is a good thing. And I say, look, it's negative, and it's going to be negative forever.
Yep.
Because I'm healed.
Yep.
And cancer will never come back. And now it's also my part to ensure that, right? I don't drink alcohol. I might have one drink on a very blue moon.
Yep.
But alcohol is classified as a class 1 carcinogen. And studies show that even having one glass of alcohol, one drink, let me pull up my notes, one drink a day gives you a 10% increased risk of breast cancer. This is just breast cancer. Having more than 3 drinks per day increases your chance for breast cancer by 30 to 50%. Wow. And college Michelle would have a different say, would have had a different take to that. But today, so just doing the things that I can to help keep a healthy lifestyle and support my body.
And I would say, we had the opportunity to be a little part of Michelle's journey at the Proton Center. But Heather, I think it's fair to say that she's almost impacted us more than we impacted her with a little bit of treatment.
Sometimes the things that you get bogged down by, whether that's your job, a promotion you didn't get, whatever it is, your dog ran away. Mine do that all the time. Little things, but then it just, I have to put things in perspective, and you're going through it, and cancer will not define me. It is not me. That I could use more of that in my life. I think all of us could. I get emotional even thinking about it, because you are such a, like I said, a light to me.
Thank you.
Yes, and I would attest to everything that you just said, Heather. Thank you so much for sharing your story today, Michelle. Any last words of encouragement for people out there that maybe would be listening to this, that are going through that cancer journey, even just starting on that journey?
Yes. I have 2 bits of encouragement. The second one, I'll start with the second one, is do your research. Like, whether it's your spouse doing the research or you yourself doing the research, your mom, family, do your research and look at cancer as a whole body approach. It's important for you to know what's going on. And if you decide to pursue integrative medicine, don't just take advice from TikTok and Instagram.
Dr. Google.
And incorporate just like the daily good habits that we need to all practice anyways. And my first piece of advice is believe in miracles. Believe in healing. Believe that you can heal. There is no place too far gone that you can go that you can't return from, right? I saw my brain dead grandmother wake back up because of cancer, and she woke back up. There's no place too far gone, and I've seen it. And so you just have to believe in miracles, believe that your body can heal. Because when you believe, you're a conductor for that, right? If you are closed off and the light's off, it's shut off. But as soon as you like flip that switch and you have that ability to conduct and believe, I can be well, I can be healed, you will allow for that light to just shine through and that healing to shine through.
Thank you so much, Michelle. You are an example of why we should believe in miracles. And here's to being cancer-free.
Thank you.
The rest of your life, and to having lots of babies. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Heather.